And I'm director of Richmond Public Libraries. So not just this library, but we hope you come to the main library, but we hope you come to the other 8 libraries within the Richmond Public Library system this summer. It's great to be here tonight with people who love to read and with terrific authors and writers that we have here with Gigi Amato, Meg Medina, and Hannah Barnaby. And I would bet that there's some of you in the audience who want to be writers as well. So it's a great opportunity for you to speak directly with writers about how they do their work, as well as about the books that they're going to recommend to you. I have only 2 things to ask of you tonight. One is that you have a good time, which I think you're going to do. And the second thing is that you share with somebody else who couldn't come tonight information about the books that you hear about tonight, or books that you like to read, and that you just talk about books this summer with others so that you can share your enjoyment and share what you've learned. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Gigi, and you'll have a great evening tonight. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Thanks, Harriet. Well, it is wonderful to be back in the main branch of the Richmond Public Library for the 4th annual Girls of Summer Book Party, and y'all are an awesome-looking group of young girls, everybody. So I think we should start. Who saw the band outside? Anybody check them out? How about that? A girl band to start our Girls of Summer Party. That was, in case you want to look them up later, that was Girls Rock RVA. Patty, Maggie, Sarah, and Emily rocking out the library. I heard someone say, this was not my mother's library. That's right, this is the Girls of Summer Library. So I think we should start, just like pump ourselves up a little bit with a little cheer. So you know how it goes, right? So I'll say girl, you say power. I'll say girl, you say power. We'll do it 3 times and we'll go all together. Ready? Girl. Power. Girl. Power. Girl. Power. Oh, okay. Ready? Okay. Girl. Power. Girl. Power. Girl. Power. So we're here on this beautiful June evening. 100 degrees outside, lovely inside, and all young ladies are invited to come down here. We're going to get talking about some books. School's out. It's time to start reading. And so before we do that, I want to make sure if you haven't gotten ice cream, feel free to hop up, get your ice cream. No big deal at any course throughout the night. We're doing some giveaways later. We're going to give away the whole list of Girls of Summer books. And we have some extra special prizes. So if you haven't put your name in one of the baskets at the back table, we have 3 baskets back there. One for girls who are pre-K through 3rd grade, one for girls who are 4th, 5th, and 6th grade, and then one for girls who are 7th grade and higher. So be sure to visit the back table, drop your name in the basket, and then we'll do some drawings.
And the only other thing I'm going to add is that we also are always looking for good books, and as you know from our list, our fans from 4 years now, we don't only pick books that came out this past year. We pick 3 books that...
Miss Zora, Miss D, say hi.
So Zora wants me to let you know that we are always looking for books, not just the books that came out this year. So, if you've got a favorite book that you think we should put on our Girls of Summer list or should look at, please write it down on one of those cards and put it there as well. And back to you.
Thank you. So we want to introduce you to some awesome people who really made this whole auditorium train. 4 fabulous librarians who organized this whole event, and they are Natasha Brunson, YA librarian,
Dave Fulmer, who is the Emerging Technologies librarian. For all the tech guys, he's back here, honorary Girls of Summer librarian.
Beth Morris, children's librarian,
and photographer. And our beloved Patty Parks, who's the branch manager and the visionary at the main branch of the Richmond Public Library.
everybody give Patty. we wanted to also thank Friends of Richmond Public Library for hosting this event with us and for providing the ice cream tonight. You probably saw BBGB, our indie bookseller, out at the front there. Woo! Right. Yay! Shop local. And there, pick up a book if you'd like, and also check them out from your library. Dabney Morris. Thank you, Dabney, for serving our ice cream for the 4th year in a row. And then there are some awesome girls of summer who kind of keep us in check. Karen Schwartz-Kopp at Richmond Family Magazine really lets the whole world know about Girls of Summer. And when we're working on the blog, here is a secret that I don't tell many people. I am horrible at commas. You would think, right? You would think a writer knows how to use a comma, and about 70% of the time I do. Meg does not have a comma problem. But we have a wonderful Girl of Summer, Chris Basic, who does our copy editing for the blog just to make sure that we get everything right. Daddy Sanderson makes our beautiful giveaway bags, so you can take those to the beach for us every year. Those are good. And then tonight, I would like to introduce you to a very special guest, Elaine Hernandez. And Elaine will be interpreting all of our book talks with American Sign Language tonight, and so later on, she's going to be teaching us a few terms. So we're very excited to have her with us.
And also, we have Penelope Carrington, who's here, photographing for us. And Karen has done 4 years running. And also, you may have noticed the woman wandering around with all of this gear attached to her head and a microphone. There she is. Allison Ponce is doing a segment for NPR. It'll be on Morning Edition and All Things Considered. So we have grown. The very, very, very special guest this evening, though, is we always bring one of the authors from the list, and this year we are really lucky to have with us Hannah Barnaby, author of Wonder Chef. And here she is, hiding and eating ice cream over here. And we will talk to Hannah in a little while, but we have some business first.
We do, you know the drill. We're going to start talking fast. 20 books. I need a librarian to help me. Okay, there are the books. So, if you've been to Girls of Summer before, you know that what Meg and I do for the whole rest of the year after the summer is we look high and low for books with awesome, amazing, strong girls. One, because we love to read about them, but we want to make sure that you know about these awesome books too. So we've got 20 of them to talk about, like really, really quickly. And we're going to ask our children's librarian, Beth Morris, to just surprise us by drawing the titles out. We're not going to go on for a long time. I think our goal is like hit each one in 30 seconds or something.
The pressure.
The pressure. Okay. And it's a surprise, so it's a split. We have to split up. Okay, Beth, go. What's first? Oh my gosh. Okay. Where is I Am Malala? Okay. This is in our older book. Now, hey, here's a big secret. In about 2 months, in August, I Am Malala is coming out for young readers as well. And so the book that we have tonight is a memoir, I Am Malala, the girl who stood up for education and was shot by the... So Malala is 16 years old right now, and she lives in England. She lived in Pakistan. And Malala's father, in a country that hasn't traditionally sent girls to school and educated them, Malala's father was very supportive and very insistent on the education of young women and girls. In fact, Malala's father ran a school for girls in Pakistan. And as the political conditions changed in Pakistan, some men told Malala that she couldn't go to school anymore. And so she had a choice to make. And Malala decided to keep going to school because she loved her books, she loved learning, and she wanted to emulate the Prime Minister of Pakistan, Benazir Bhutto, who was assassinated in 2006. And here Malala tells her story. And it's not only the story of a young girl fighting for educational rights for women around the world, but who live in America, to help them understand the history and the politics and the culture that Malala grew up in, so that we can see how, even across the world, We all have the same and similar values of wanting to go to school, wanting to learn, and wanting to be our best as young women.
30 seconds.
Oh no!
30 seconds, Gigi Amato.
Okay, well, you can't wrap your head around that book in less than yeah, okay, I'm sorry. I'll make it up.
You better be talking fast and on your line.
No. All right. Okay, 30
You have a
seconds.
chance to redeem yourself.
Who Will I Be, Lord? By Vonda Michelle Nelson, illustrated by Sean Qualls. I love this book because I love stories that are about families and intergenerations and how we learn who we can be and who our family was. So this is like a stroll through a hallway. Did anybody have a grandma like I did with pictures on the wall of all your whole family, right? Like your aunts and uncles all the way back. That's what this book is like. It's like learning who you are by studying your family and who you want to be by asking and praying and thinking about that with God. That's it. Was that 30 seconds?
Close, close. I like
Closer.
I like Gigi Amato.
Okay. Okay, I promise 30 seconds. Now, meet Denitra Brown. Everybody's read Meet Denitra Brown, right? What? Holler if you have read Meet. Come on, this book was written in 1994. It was written by Ms. Nikki Grimes, illustrated by Floyd Cooper. It's told in a rhyme, so I wrote you a rhyme. And here it goes like this. I love the story called Meet Denitra Brown, about two best friends scooting around town. I've read it 100 times, memorized all the rhymes. Denitra and Zuri, they don't care about boys who tease and taunt and make too much noise. They just walk on by, heads tilted high. The story unfolds wholly in rhymes, written by Ms. Nikki Grimes. Poems short and long, words that sweep you along. That nice Floyd Cooper drew the book. He gave Denitra a snazzy summer look. To purple, she's always loyal, because purple is simply royal. This story makes me so happy to see girls who can say, I love being me. You ought to read Meet Denitra Brown. She is the most splendiferous girl in town. Woo!
Rules by Cynthia Ward. What I love about this book, it's a middle grade book, but it really takes a look inside what it's like to be the sister of somebody who's impacted by autism. We have a reader who is going to read a piece of Ozma. Welcome, Ozma, please.
This is rules for David. Chew with your mouth closed. Say thank you when someone gives you a present, even if you don't like it. When someone says hi, you say hi back. When you want to get out of answering something, distract the questioner with another question. Not everything worth keeping has to be useful. If the bathroom door is closed, knock. Effective, captain has a friend over. Sometimes people laugh when they like you, but sometimes they laugh to hurt you. The toys in the fish tank. Follow the rule. Come on, David. I let go of his sleeve, afraid I will rip it. When he was little, I could pull my brother behind me if he didn't want to do something. But now David's 8 and too strong to be pulled. Opening the front door, I sighed. My first day of summer vacation is nothing like I dreamed. I had imagined staying warm, with seagulls swinging across the blue sky, not overcast and dank. Still, I refused to grab my jacket from the peg inside the front door. Umbrella, David said, it's far off there in his brown eyes. It's not raining, come on. Mom said to go to the car.
I think that Cynthia Ward does a great job of writing with honesty about the frustrations and the joys of families that include people with differences. So I think this really belongs in everybody's house and in everybody's library.
Seven Motion, which is one of my favorites. Stand Tall, Molly Melon.
Oh, gosh. This is a picture book that made me howl. What would you do if you were no taller than a dog and you had buck teeth and when you sang you sounded like a bullfrog? Right, this is the problem. So Molly has this problem and you think that she'd be ashamed, except she's not. And that's what I love about this book, because it's a celebration of loving yourself in your own skin, even if it's a little shorter and stranger than most people's skin. Stand Tall, Molly Lou Melon. It's part of a series. There are other titles. Highly recommend. Yeah, I know. Marisol McDonald doesn't match Marisol McDonald. No combina. Ay! What are we going to do? A bilingual picture book, which is great if you want to practice your Spanish as you're practicing your English. Marisol is Peruvian and Scottish, so she's a mix of everything. She has red hair and freckles, and she speaks beautiful Spanish. This is about what it's like to be a bicultural kid. And you don't have to be a Latino kid to like this. You could be any kind of kid to really read and enjoy the story. By Monica Brown, award-winning author with a very deep list of excellent bilingual books. Okay. You know what happens? You have a best friend, and then something, and you can't quite put your finger on it, something changes between you. And you feel a little lost without your friend. This is what All Alone in the Universe is about. It's a real look inside girl friendships when you're 11 and 12 and 13. Wonderful writing, funny, a little sad sometimes, and good pictures in there because Lynn Ray Perkins is also an artist. All Alone in the Universe, Lynn Ray Perkins. Come back to me. You have to do it. Okay, and we sing. This is Upper High School. So this is for older girls. I found this book so deeply moving. She is sent to a boarding school, the main character is sent to a boarding school after a really unfortunate event with her boyfriend. Her boyfriend commits suicide in a very public way. And it's a look inside the really difficult and painful decisions that happen in teenagers' lives and all the fallout that happens as a result. She reads in poetry as Emily Dickinson. Her name is Emily. So it's a wonderful book to sort of look and study Emily Dickinson's poetry, but also look inside the really complicated and scary decisions that teens are faced with today. And we say she's a North Carolina author, really astounding.
Yes, The Girl from the Tar Paper School. Thank you. This is a new book that just came out in January, The Girl from the Tar Paper School, Barbara Rose Johns, and the Advent of the Civil Rights Movement. You know, when we think about the Civil Rights Movement, we probably often think about some of our greatest leaders, right? Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, John Lewis. How many of you, when we think of the Civil Rights Movement, how many of you think of a teenager? This is the story of Barbara Rose Johns, who in 1951 really helped to start the Civil Rights Movement when she was a sophomore in high school in Prince Edward County, not too far from here, near Farmville. Barbara attended the African American school, and at that time schools were segregated. And Barbara looked around her school and she saw that the conditions were very different from the school for white children in Prince Edward. At her school, the rain came in through the roof, there was no heat, and she said to her teacher, "I am sick of this." And you know what her teacher said? "What are you going to do about it, Barbara?" So 15-year-old Barbara organized 450 students, and they staged a strike and walked out of that high school. And eventually, they drew the national attention of people who wanted to help create a more equal and integrated educational system in our nation. And with Barbara's brave act, a lawsuit was brought and eventually filed be a part of the Brown versus Board of Education suit, which we all study in high school. I picked this book because I think it's important to remember that kids don't just sit back and watch history. They very often lead and make and create history. And Barbara Rose Johns, now I hope anytime anyone asks us, who do you think of when you think of who led the civil rights movement? Who will you add to that list now? Barbara Johns.
I want to just add that the author of that book is coming to the Virginia Children's Book Festival at Longwood University this fall. And make sure you put that on your calendar.
How about
Oh, Deep in the Sahara. This is a beautiful book. Deep in the Sahara, written by Kelly Cunane and illustrated by Hada Hodai. This is another intergenerational story. You know, I love stories about girls and their grandmas and their moms and their aunts. And this is a story set in West Africa about a young girl of Muslim faith who really loves the traditional veil that the older women and females in her family are wearing. And so throughout the story, she asks her sister, will I be beautiful when I wear the veil? Will I be mysterious when I wear the veil? And over the course of this book, Lala learns that there's much more than beauty and mystery about the traditional veil, that there's a lot about faith and about family. I love this book because it's beautiful, bold, vibrant colors, as you can see, but I also love it because it just, again, reminds us how important our family is to teaching us about the world and teaching us about our place in the world. Oh, that is a mysterious book. Zora and Me. This is co-written by two women, authors T.R. Simon and Victoria Bond. It's a dandy little book. It's part historical fiction, part in the Everglades of Florida. Really, that's not true. Not in the Everglades. Outside of Orlando and Eatonville. I wanted to push it down to the scarier part of Florida, but it is set in a swamp. It's really an imagining of the childhood of one of America's great literary treasures, Zora Neale Hurston. And let me tell you, Zora Neale Hurston, both in life and in this book, was a tall tale teller. She could spin a story. She had a heart of gold in this book, and I think that you will love it. It's kind of ghost story, kind of mystery, and kind of historical fiction. Hands and Hearts. Another picture book. This one written by Donna Jo Napoli and illustrated by Amy Bates, called Hands and Hearts with Words in American Sign Language. And it's the story of a little girl and her mom who spend a day at the ocean and they say nothing. So there's any place you don't need to use words, maybe it is the ocean. But they do speak with their hands. It's a poetry book and it teaches some words. And I'm going to ask Elaine to teach us some words. So Elaine, come here in front of me. So one of the words in this book is the word dance. Can you show us that word? Yeah. Girl. Oh, is it on the left? Either left or right. Okay. Girl. Oh, summer. Girl. So, shall we dance again? So, dance, girl, summer, dance. Thank you very much. You got it? Dance. Okay.
This is actually one of my favorites too, Fat Angie.
Oh, Fat Angie. This is YA. This is high school. It won the Stonewall. So Angie is overweight, and she's called Fat Angie. And she gets into a big problem the first day of school with little Miss Sloan, who's the high school basketball superstar. But Fat Angie's got some serious sadness going on. Her sister's been missing in action in Iraq, and it's a tough tale about bullying around sexual preference, around weight, and around, and it's a story also about grief. But it's a funny story in lots of parts, and it's written in this really unusual style, very much like television, with cuts and media. So I think you're going to enjoy the romp through that, Angie. Oh, the thing about luck. This is middle grade, and when I think of a topic for a book, I don't think harvesting wheat. Yes, that's a book that my girls will really want to read. But this is an intergenerational story that I also like, and her name is Summer. And Summer is with her grandparents for the summer, and they are workers. They harvest wheat. Her grandmother's always grounding her for life. You're grounded for life, but for silly things like staying up 5 minutes late or forgetting to wipe her feet. She's always grounded for life. This is a story about a girl with too much maybe responsibility. With too much responsibility for her brother and for everything going I know. Anyway, the thing about luck, Cynthia Kagapata. And I want to tell you, her Q&A is going to be wonderful. She originally, when she wrote this book, she wrote it, the person telling the book was a Doberman Pinscher. That's very funny.
Okay, The Kingdom of Little Wounds by Suzanne Kokel. This is a big, thick book. It's so heavy. This is for really the most mature readers, 16, 17, or college age. But you know, this is one of the most impactful books that I've read in my life. I think of it as a very dark and terrifying fairy tale. It's set in a Scandinavian kingdom in 1572. And it's the story of 3 females in a royal court who were being used as jockey for power among the king and his advisors and scholars. What I love this book is the writing, though it's a heavy book and deals with some tough issues about being female, and language is amazing. So it is a dark fairy tale, but it's also full of delicacy and beauty, and really a story about power by Suzanne Kokel. Oh, The Care and Keeping of You, #1, the body book for girls. Everybody's read this, right? Yeah, I knew it. Have you read it? You would love it. Have you read it? You would love it too. So I asked my goddaughter, Yumi, I said, so what book should I put on Girls this Summer? And I didn't even finish the sentence, and she said, The Care and Keeping of You. So you know I already told you I love intergenerational books. More than intergenerational books, I love body books. And I always get the title of this one wrong. I keep telling Meg, where's my copy of My Amazing Body? So that's what this book makes you feel like, that you have an amazing body, because you do, and it's changing all of the time. This is a terrific book to read with your mom or your aunt or your grandma. And it's also a great book to have on your private bookshelf so that when you want to learn something or figure out what's going on, you have your own awesome reference, The Care and Keeping of You.
Moonrunner.
Oh, Moonrunner. Hey, have you ever had a friend who, like, they were best friends, they loved you, everything was awesome until you started doing what they do better than they do it? You know what I mean? That's the story of this book. This is the story of Mina. She's a Chinese-American girl who doesn't really like to run at all. But her best friend is like the fastest runner in the whole entire school. And the gym teacher makes Mina run, and guess what? She's a good runner. Exactly. She turns out to be a good runner, a fast runner, and she gets recruited to the track team. And you know who she has to run against? Exactly. Her best friend. So you can imagine what that does to the friendship. So Mina has a choice to make. Will she do her best in the race and like run really fast and potentially fracture her friendship with her best friend? Or will she find a way to work it out? I love a sports book. This is a sports book and a friendship book, Moonrunner, by Carolyn Marston.
This fantastic. This is a picture book for if you're 4, if you're 7, if you're 13, if you're 25, if you're 55, if you're 80. This is wonderful because it's a book about the heavy things, the times when we don't feel good about ourselves, where things are worrying us or hanging on our mind. Of course, the illustrations are gorgeous, and she physically is carrying around these weirdo rocks. You know, you're like, what is it? But the illustration is just beautiful. But it's really about what we do with things that worry us and that stay with us months and years, and how we can turn them into things that don't weigh us down, but that define us in another way. So I really think this is a wonderful book for middle grade, for high school, but it's a picture book. I think 4 to 7-year-olds will enjoy it too, so I'm putting it there. All right. Oh, this is astonishingly wonderful. Codename Verity by Elizabeth Wein. I can tell you very little without ruining it for you. So I'm going to tell you that it's set in World War II. It's 2 fighter pilots, and the opening scene is that one of them has been captured by the Nazis, and she's being interrogated. And she has decided that she's going to tell them everything they want to know. And it's really the story of it's historical fiction, so you really get the story of what it was like to be a female pilot in World War II. The writing's astonishing, and then in the second half of the book, there's such a vast and incredible revelation that it takes your breath away. She has a new book called Rose Under Fire, equally wonderful, but this is just not to be missed. High School, Codename Verity, Elizabeth Wein.
Oh, hey, that works out perfectly. The Finisher by David Baldacci. Hey, who knew David Baldacci writes children's books? But he does. So this is brand new, out in March. Scholastic put it in a fancy box. So we're going to give it away just like this, and tucked away inside here is a journal. The Finisher is fantasy. Any fans of reading fantasy? Few fantasy fans? Okay, good. The reason we chose The Finisher for Girls of Summer is because the star of this book is a fiery girl named Vega Jane. And Vega Jane has been orphaned, and she's supposed to be taking care of her brother. But there are some shady things going on in Wormwood, the city where she lives. And over the course of this book, Vega Jane has to come to find out that she has some extra special powers, some extra special intelligence, and that she is actually the inheritor of a pretty important role of saving her city. David Baldacci's done a great job in creating Vega Jane. I have enjoyed this character as much as any characters I've read in a very long time. She's fun and she's engaging, and there are lots of other cool characters in here too. This is The Finisher by David Baldacci.
And last but not least, the moment you've all been waiting for. Ladies and ladies and ladies and ladies, welcome to The Wonder Show by Hannah Barnaby. We have a reading, and Ellie's going to read us a little bit, and then we're going to invite Hannah up, and we'll be talking about this fabulous book, Middle School, High School, and here we go.
A few weeks after Portia turned 9, Max and Aunt Sophia took her to the circus to distract her from the empty houses and the dust and the quiet. It was Max's idea, the circus, but it was Sophie's money that got them in. She grumbled a bit as she handed it over to the beaming woman in the ticket wagon. But even Sophia wasn't immune to the alluring smells of sawdust and pink sugar that hung all around them. Even she had been a child once. They went through the menagerie at first, gaping at the elephants and one colossal hippo that bobbed calmly in a huge tank of water. Max moved quickly, wanting to see everything at once, turning occasionally to glance at his daughter behind him. Portia stood next to Sophia and resisted the urge to grab her hand when one of the elephants extended its trunk in her direction, the fleshy tip trembling as it searched the air. "I think it's looking for a kiss," Sophia said. Her voice was high-pitched and full of forced excitement. It made Portia glad that she had kept her hands to her side. When they exited the tent at the other end of the menagerie, they found themselves on the midway. There was a long row of booths on each side selling popcorn and cotton candy and chances to throw things to win other things. Portia knew better than to ask if she could play one of the games. Max might have relented, but Aunt Sophia was against gambling of any kind. She would have spent the rest of the day lecturing Portia on the subject, though it almost would have been a relief to hear Sophia speaking in her normal voice instead of her false, cheery, "Day at the circus" one. Halfway down the east side of the Midway, between the ring toss and the Beto booth, there was a long stage with a squat tent behind it. There was a podium at one end, and next to the tent entrance, a huge sign that said, "Strange People."
Thank you, Alistair. Let's meet Hannah. Please welcome Hannah Barnaby. We should have a sign that says crazy people. So I'm going to pass this to you because I want you to tell us a little bit. I will tell you that Wonder Show is set in the 30s, and Hannah's going to fill in the blanks on that. You know, sometimes when we read a book, it comes to us at exactly the right time. And I read this book this year. I was having it was a really crazy year. My mom was very sick, and I had to sit at her bedside for long periods of time. And I had this book with me. And it was such a companion to me. It was such a relief to be able to go into this other world and follow Portia on her journey. So I wanted to thank you for that, for writing this book that didn't leave me by myself at that terrible time. But mostly I want you to tell us a little bit about what you think your book is about, the blurb, and then we're going to pepper you with lots of really hard questions.
Fantastic. Okay. What do I think? You know, one of the hardest questions to answer is, what is your book about? And as a writer, you're supposed to have like a quick, snappy answer that makes everyone just want to run out and buy your book. And I haven't perfected the quick, snappy answer yet. I mean, the short answer is it's about a girl who joins a carnival sideshow in 1939 and discovers that being normal is actually a huge disadvantage in that world. There's nothing special about her, and that is a problem for her because she wants a job at the sideshow, and there's not a lot for a normal girl to do. So she has to draw from her ability to tell stories, which is something that she's always been criticized for in her family, but actually helps her succeed.
And for the girls who are not familiar with what a sideshow is.
Yes. Okay. So you know what a carnival is, and a lot of the things that they have at a carnival now are the same as the things they had at a carnival in 1939, which is when this story takes place. A lot of the games were the same, the food was the same, there were animals, there were, you know, rides and Ferris wheels and all that.
So like the fair,
Yeah.
kind of like the state fair too, right?
Yeah. Usually a carnival back then would travel with a circus. The circus and the carnival were two different things. The carnival was the part with the games where you would walk outside, and then the circus was, you know, under the tent, and that was like the sophisticated people worked for the circus, and they didn't mix with the carnival people. They were very separate. So behind the scenes, the circus people ate first, they showered first, they traveled in nicer accommodations, and the carnival people were really kind of second-class citizens. So there's also some stuff in this book about that separation, that kind of segregation. And then at even a lower level were the sideshow people. And these are people who had what we would now recognize as birth defects or physical disabilities or mental disabilities. And they were put on display for people to pay money and just go and look at them, kind of like they were in a zoo for people. So it's pretty unpleasant in a lot of ways. And yet, a lot of the people, the carnival, the sideshow freaks, they were called, kind of made their own families. In fact, some of them became families. They married each other, they had children, they had houses that they retired to in some very interesting towns in Florida that are still there. And so they created their own community, and I admire that.
So Hannah, one of the things that really interests me when I've heard you talk about Wonder Show, which I loved as well, You know, I've heard you say that one of the most common questions that people ask a writer is, where do you get your ideas? And what I'm interested in is, how did this idea come into being? So I've heard you say that this book started with an image of Portia on a bicycle, but then it took a really interesting path to become set in a carnival setting book. Can you just talk about how the idea grew and got away into this beautiful thing?
Partly it was a practical matter, because
That's what I love, because the book is so magical, but the practical road, right?
I kind of painted myself into a corner, because I had this image of this girl in my head, but I didn't know anything about who she was, where she was coming from, where she was going. I just had the sense that she was kind of panicked and she was leaving a bad place, and that it was very unclear. And then I found out about a grant that was being given away by the Boston Public Library. A friend of mine who I worked with said, you should apply for this grant. It's a great deal. They're going to give you money for a year. Well, it's 9 months. You write at the library for 20 hours a week. That's all you have to do. You don't have to shelf books. You don't have to do story time. You don't have to do any of that stuff. You're the children's writer in residence at the Boston Public Library.
How do you say hello?
We'll be right back.
Gigi and Meg are going to go apply for that.
All aboard, Boston.
It's still available. They're still doing it. This is the first year, though. And I said, yeah, that sounds fantastic. And she said, so the deadline's in 5 days. And I said, you couldn't have told me about this, I don't know, a week ago? So I had to come up really fast with a proposal for the project that I would work on if I won this grant. And I had that image in my head, and I went on the Boston Public Library website, and I was like, well, what do they have in their special collections? Because I'm going to have access to those too if I get this grant. And they had all the circus stuff. And I loved the circus. I always loved the circus. I was the queen of the Barnum & Bailey Circus for a day when I was a little kid. We got the special tickets where you ride the train to go in, and they pulled me out of the line, and they put me in the front car with the ringmaster and the main clown, and I did a little dance, and I was shocked.
You were doing research then, and you didn't even know it.
Right. You see how long it takes to write a book. So that was the collection that really interested me, and I sort of thought, well, okay, so I have this girl on a bike. I'm picturing her a long time ago. And I did a little bit of research, and I found out, you know what, that era, 1939, 1940, a lot of the small carnivals were starting to die out. It was really the end of an era, because it was after the Great Depression, it was pre-World War II. People had disposable income again, forms of entertainment were changing. It's just, even with a really quick Google search, I started finding out all this really interesting stuff. I was like, okay, I'm going to make that where she's going. And I was just pulling this out of thin air. And so, I write this proposal, and I won the grant. And my first reaction was, I won the grant! And my second reaction was, oh, no, I need to write the book. Now I need to, and I had no idea if I could write the book. But my research, it was the most fun I've ever had, writing anything. That research, it was an excuse to read every piece of fiction I could find about circuses and carnivals, every nonfiction piece, watch movies, do all this stuff, and I just tried to immerse myself in that world. And the characters that I discovered during my research were more fascinating than anyone I could have been in thin air. So a lot of the characters in the book are based on actual historical, real people who were in such essentially.
I was going to ask you that, because the novel opens with her mother, the young girl named Portia. Her mother has moved out from the family, and her father eventually does too. And she's left to take care of this really nasty fat man, the terrible voice, it's circus time. Her, who drops her off at the McCreevy Home for Wayward Girls.
Run by Mister.
She's dropped off. So for me, it was a book also about searching for family and searching for what you can call family and searching for what you can call your group. And it was interesting to me that, she found herself, her family with outcasts. Were you planning that, or did that happen on the pages as you were writing?
I didn't plan it. In fact, I wrote it if you read it, it's in very short pieces, and that's how I wrote it, and I wrote them all out of order, which is a really dumb way to write a book. I don't recommend it, because it makes the revision process just a nightmare. But I had never written a whole novel before. That was the other scary thing about winning the grant. I was like, I don't even know if I can do this. So I just was writing it very instinctively. I was finding out about these real people, and every time I sort of discovered one of them, I would kind of try and put myself in their place, almost like method acting, I guess, like try to see what would that feel like to be that tall, or to be attached to another person, or to be tiny, or what would that physical reality be like? I'm just trying to write for myself so I would understand them better, and their characters evolved that way. And the more I wrote about them, the more I loved them. And it just made sense that they would kind of take Portia in, and that they would turn out to be the people who cared about her the most, and had the most genuine loyalty to her.
I like also that sometimes, and Maya Angelou, who just lost sadly, I was reading a post that she did on a teen site, and somebody asked her, how is it that you overcame all of these obstacles and became this great author? And she said, it really wasn't about any sort of greatness, it was really about forgiving yourself, learning to forgive yourself and own who you were, and the mistakes that you made even early in life. And if you know anything about Maya Angelou, she made many big mistakes. She did many wonderful things, but she had some really big early mistakes. And Portia does too. And I think that was an interesting thing, that whole notion of forgiveness and like making a mistake and regrouping after that.
Ladies, do y'all have any questions for Hannah?
Yeah, we have some.
We have a few minutes before we do our giveaway. So if you have any questions for Hannah, I'm going to try to get to as many folks as I can. I need a librarian to cut me off at about 8:15. Okay.
Hi, did you want to ask Hannah a question?
Okay, what?
Is it hard writing a book?
Is it hard writing a book?
The short answer is yes, it is hard. But what I want you to know is that if it's hard, it doesn't mean that you're not doing it right. It's hard even if you're really good at it. I mean, I think it's hard. It's hard for me because I try to only write about things that are important to me and that are interesting to me. And those stories are hard to tell because they're complicated. An easy story for an uncomplicated character might be easier to write, but is not as interesting to me. And if I'm writing a story and it's not holding my interest, I don't think it's going to hold anyone else's either. So.
Sorry, I wrote the question down, but I was wondering, like, when you come up with characters, strong passive characters that you really like, but are struggling with actual plots to put them with, what do you do?
That is, yeah.
We're all ears on that
That's a
one.
big question, yeah. I wish I had the, Somerset Maugham said there are 3 rules for writing a novel. Unfortunately, no one knows what they are. And every book is different. So just, I thought when I started writing Wonder Show, I thought, I've never written a novel before, I don't know if I know how to do this. Now I've written that novel, and it's, been pretty well received. I just finished my second novel, and it's the same thing happened. I got halfway through it, and I thought, I don't know if I know how to do this. There's no one way to do it. And plot is hard for me, definitely. I find character, I could write about people and their conversations all the live long day. But at the end of the day, something has to happen to them. Right. So I often will go back. Plot is something I work on in revision. It's not always there. When I finish my first draft, I often go back and read it and I think, okay, nothing happens. And this is great, these people are wonderful and I love them, but nothing is happening. So then I have to think kind of, again, practically, and just think, well, what are the possibilities here? What could realistically be taking place here? And that kind of gets me started.
How did you think of it?
How did I think of it in my head? So one of the great things about being a writer, this might happen to you sometimes. You're sitting in school and you're supposed to be paying attention to something, but you're thinking about something that's much more interesting than what you're supposed to be paying attention to. Does that sound familiar? Anybody? Yeah. I was that kind of kid. I was daydreaming all the time. I was not allowed to sit near windows when I was in school because I would just look out the windows. I was the worst softball player in the history of the sport of softball because I would just stand in the outfield and stare up at the sky. I never caught a ball. It was terrible. But it makes me a very good writer because I use my imagination. And you have to keep using it. It's like a muscle. It gets flabby if you don't use it. So you use it as much as you can. And that's why the timing of this is perfect because it's summer. And you don't have to go to school for like 3 months. And you can just lay around and think about whatever you want. So that's how you get started.
What else do you do besides write books?
That is not enough.
What don't I do? I have 3 kids, so that is, you know, kind of time consuming. They're 12, 6, and 4. So it's a whole range, too. Very confusing. A lot of the time. I do that. I also do things like I knit, and I cook, and I bake, and I look at Facebook, and I procrastinate. And I come to Girls of Summer. I drive to Richmond. You know, life goes on, and people often, I'm just like tired of hearing writers say, you've got to write every day. You're serious. Stephen King. Okay, we get it. You're great. You're very successful.
He has a stack, though. Like, he has a stack.
Yeah, I don't know.
To do the laundry.
I think he might also have like some gremlins working for him or something. I don't write every day. And you know, that's not going to fit into my life, and I'm learning to be okay with that. It's still hard sometimes to accept, but I think about writing all the time, and I count that as work because when I'm thinking about a story, I'm mulling it over, I'm working it in my head, and so when I sit down to write, I'm that much farther along. So even when I'm doing laundry, or I'm driving to ballet class, or I'm going to the grocery store, you know, doing all this other mom thing, I'm thinking about stories and what to work on and what I want to say.
I have a 2-part question. The first part is, what is your target age range? If a mother is looking for a book and maybe her child is reading up, you know, so what is your target age range? And then the second part, I know when you're writing for kids of all ages, you don't want to load up a book with all kinds of lessons and, you know, meaning, and you don't want to hit them over the head with that. But is the takeaway from this book, does it talk about tolerance and inclusion? Because you're looking at this very different part of history, and, you know, what we want our kids to know now is a very different lesson. Did you feel like you were able to work that in for the reader?
Yeah, that is a great question. Age range is an interesting consideration because it's not something that most writers think about while they're writing. Other than maybe picture book writers who, you know, are writing for a certain genre. I mean, Wonder Show is an interesting example because when it was published, while I was writing it, I was thinking of YA, young adult. And the first thing that happened after it was published is that the Children's Book of the Month Club put it on their summer reading list for middle grade. And I was like, oh, well, okay. And then it was a Morris Award finalist, and that's a young adult award. So it is kind of a bridge book. I would say 12 and up is what I generally tell people. And as for the takeaway, I mean, I think that I like my favorite books are the ones where the lessons emerge organically and are not spelled out too much. So what I hope the takeaway is that the readers get to see these people through sympathetic eyes. Portia had developed sympathy for them because she grows to love them and care about them and see them as real three-dimensional people rather than, you know, objects on a stage. And I hope that the readers will feel that as well, and will also take what, you know, Meg said about Portia being a girl who makes mistakes and then, you know, there's some consequences for those mistakes. She's not perfect. She's complicated, and she's a mess sometimes, but she learns, and she's still open. Her heart is still open. So that's what I hope for my readers too.
Come right back up there.
I know you said you're working on your second book. Is it a sequel to the Portia?
No, it's not. If people ask me all the time, am I going to write another book about Portia? It was 8 years start to finish, from when I started writing the book to when it was published. And I wasn't working on it constantly that whole time, but it was, you know, in my mind for a long time. So when I finally finished it, I was like, bye-bye. But I will say, you know, I continue to talk about the book. I do book talks. I go to schools and, talking to kids who are discovering it for the first time. I see it through fresh eyes, which is such a gift as a writer to hear, about your books that way. So I won't say I'll never do it, but I have many other ideas that are going in other directions. So the book that I just finished is a young adult, contemporary, modern day story.
Yes, my name is Katie Parham, and I'm a product of the Richmond Public Schools, but I've also taught for 20 years in the school system. I have some serious concerns on helping these children with bullying. There's a lot of bullying going on in school. Do you intend to write something to help these children grow up with bullying? Because for me, it started in elementary school, and then it went to middle school, and it wasn't always children. Sometimes we had adults, instructors that were bullying. But I'm wrong, and I can call them up front now. But our children need help with this bullying, and it's going too far. Please write something in the future to help all these children deal with bullying. We're one race, the human race, and that's the way it's going to be. Thank you.
Okay, I need someone who can talk really loud. Ready? Yeah. How do you draw a person in the book?
I am not very good at drawing, which is why I'm not a picture book illustrator. But you know what? You could make your own drawings of the people in the book, what you think they look like, and I would love to see those if you did it.
And Hannah draws with her words in a way that you wouldn't believe, right? She draws with her words, and you can actually see Portia on that bicycle running away from something.
Did you want to be a writer when you were younger?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
Did you want to be a writer when you were little?
You know what? I always loved reading, and I think I wanted to be a writer, but I didn't think that being a writer I didn't know how you did that. It didn't sound like a job that I could actually have. I was like, oh, I should probably be a teacher, or, something more realistic. I don't know. And so for a long time, I did want to be a writer, but I was a little afraid to tell people that I was a writer, because when you tell people you're a writer, then they have all these other questions, and they want to know, well, what are you working on? Have you written anything that I've read? Have I heard of you? Why haven't I heard of you? Are you famous? How many copies of books have you sold? So it was a secret for a long time. But what I did was I found all these other jobs related to books. So I worked in bookstores, I worked in libraries, I was a children's book editor for a number of years. I taught creative writing for children in Boston, and all these other jobs that were related to telling stories. And so it took me a long time to say, you know what, I'm a writer. And here I am.
When you're writing a book and you're making a character, how do you make a character everyone can relate to?
Ooh, that's a great question.
I think it's hard to come up with somebody that everyone could relate to, right? Because not everyone is going to have something in common with the same one person. So the best that I can do is write a character who feels really real and who feels like a real person, who feels well developed and consistent and has a strong voice. And then hopefully you would find something in common with that person, even if it wasn't what you expected. I've heard some stories from readers who I would not have expected to connect with the book, but they connected with a very specific part of the book that to me was not a big part of the book, but for them it was all about, it was like a mirror to them. That was the moment that they connected with. So I can't predict what a particular reader is going to get from a book, but that's the beauty of it. I have been asked too, do you think about your audience while you're writing? Well, first of all, if I was trying to write a story and I was picturing like an auditorium full of teenagers, it would be paralyzing and I wouldn't write anything. It would be horrifying. No, but so I try to write books that I would have wanted to read. And I think, I probably haven't matured all that much, even though I'm older and I have 3 kids and I have all the trappings of a mature woman. But inside, I'm kind of still like 15, 16. And those are the books that I like to read, and those are the books that I like to write.
Okay, hi. I had a teacher, and she was telling us about reading and writing, and she said something like, when authors write, sometimes they put part of themselves into a character. Do you do that with your books?
That's an excellent question. I do that with my books. I try not to make my characters exactly like me though, because then it just feels like I'm writing about myself all the time. And if you do that too much, you can forget that you're writing about someone who's different than you and who has a different experience than you. So if I find that I'm giving my characters like a lot of same qualities, then I do something, I give them something that's completely different. So Portia is a lot braver than I am. She's a lot more confident than I was at her age. She will stand up for herself no matter what. And she is really sure of herself no matter what. Even when she's done some things that she's sorry for, she doesn't doubt herself. And I wasn't like that so much at that age, so it felt really good to write about her because it made me feel stronger too.
I want you to know, Hannah's going to be around, so I want anyone who has a question just to like totally mob sing her, ask those questions in just a minute. We're getting ready to do some important business, so but first, let's just say a huge thank you. Thank you, Hannah. The library has Wonder Show. So what we're going to do now, before the library closes, we have a lot of stuff to give away. We have books, and flip-flops. I'm ready to rock and roll. All right, the big books last.
We're gonna do we have 3 book bags.
3 book bags.
K-3, grades 4 to 6, and then grades 7 and up, those are last. And these are all just in between. So here's 7th grade and up. This is these guys. These are, wait. Okay, these are names, guys. Yes, there's a pre-K. Okay. High school kid.
Okay. All right. So this is Jada Easley. And Jada's favorite books. I love these myself. The Benford High School series. Jada, we have a copy of. Are you Jada? Okay. Here's your prize. Somewhere in Burton. This was from last year by Catherine Catmull. This is a terrific book.
And I have 6th grader Meredith Kaiser. Where are you? Woo! We have 3 times lucky from last time.
Now, Kayari. Where is Kayari? Who loves the Magic Treehouse? Kayari, you're going to love this book, Anna Hibiscus by Tinky from last year. Terrific book. And thank you for sharing that you love the Magic Treehouse.
Ginger Clark. Yes. Ginger, do you have nothing? Do you have this one? Okay. I'm giving you a yucky that Gavin wants to kick your ass.
Kamira? Oh, Kamira, this is my favorite book too. Are you there? God, it's me, Margaret. Oh, yes. Where is Kamira? Oh, hi.
Dylan Burgess, where are you? You love Chansey. That's her
If I have to say that right? She's right here. Hi, cutie. Marisol McDonald. You'll love that book. Thank you.
Lindsay Schwarzkopf loves Wonder. Is she here? Come on up.
Kira Oakland. Here, we got some. Brian's supposed to be here. Where's Bippy Johnson?
Bippy Johnson, where are you? She loves puppy much. Yvonne Sharp.
Yvonne
Shannon Morelli, where are you? Ah,
She writes Ask the Passengers by ASP.
and I'm going to give you Fingerprints of You by Kate Piedmont.
Shannon Neverson, who loves Diary of a Wimpy Kid. Did I say that right? Shannon Neverson.
Where's Emma Tolley? Emma? Emma Tolley? Oh, here's Emma's mom.
Fourth grade.
That's really for yourself. That's French.
Wondership. And now, let's see. Isabella Piero, out of Where's Wondership? I bet Hannah would sign it for you.
Oh, how would you say this? Nevaeh?
Oh, Nevaeh did.
Nevaeh Hackett. Did she?
Nevaeh already won. So Nevaeh, we're gonna go. Okay. Nevaeh.
Hold on, Nevaeh, hold on.
Yeah. Okay.
Come on, Nevaeh.
Okay. Thank you.
Reagan Hardy. Let's get Reagan flip flops. Everybody needs them.
And Cadence Gertson. She's right here. Cat in the Hat.
Luna Wheeler. Where's Luna?
Ah! Hello, Luna. We're getting down to the wire before we give away the whole book list. So this is also for a copy of Wondership. Bella, but Bella didn't give me a last name, but her favorite book is Fox and Socks. Hey, Bella. Lucy Cottle, who loves Because of Winn-Dixie. I think we're good. Yeah, right. So now we're going for the book bag, right?
Denise Anderson.
Is this the 7th grade book bag? Oh, we're doing the book bag? Oh, no. Oh. Yeah. All right. Now we'll go. So you draw and I'll distribute. Sure. So listen, I want to tell you, we have these trademark Girls of Summer beach bags. They're two-sided, and the way they work, you can take them on the beach or you can just keep your books in them. You draw them up by 4 sides, and then you just carry all your stuff in it and throw it down in the sand when you're ready to read. My mother-in-law makes these bags for us every summer. Betty Sanders.
Winner of this year's Katie Creek book bag is Naka McMahon.
Nana Zerkin. Francis Sanchez.
we want to thank the Richmond Public Library. I think probably Beth, you have some words. Kick people out for the summer.
I want to say thank you all for coming, and it's one of my favorite nights. And don't forget to sign up for summer reading. It's just started. If you haven't already, there's some computers in the back, so you can do it quickly. Or you can just go to the Richmond Public Library's website, click on Citizen Read, and it'll take you to the banners that you need for your age group. It goes from 0 to 10. Just click on the right one. Almost 10. And every week, as long as you are logging in your books that you're reading or the time that you're reading, you will go into our weekly random prize drawing, and we have prizes for all age groups every week. So get reading, log your stuff, and hopefully you'll win a good prize.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for coming out tonight. You had a great night, everyone. So